Hello and welcome to another painting tabled video. Back again to show off my Doombull. Last video I talked about how I had built and converted the model, and now I'm going to start painting it. So we'll go through a couple of the steps. So the first piece of the model I'm going to work on is the skin, and I'm going to start with Reaper Master Series Tanned Leather as my base color. And you can take a look at that here. And this is a pretty light color to start as a base. Usually I tend to work with the foundation paints and I go with a dark color to start off with, but I'm going to try starting with something a little lighter. It's probably going to take me a few coats to get a nice even coverage on here. And then I'm going to try and use some washes and glazes to bring out the shading and the highlights instead of starting dark and working my way up. Feeling like I want to experiment a little bit and try something new. So I'm just going to take my paint here, add some to my palette, and then I will get started. So as you can see, as I'm starting to put this color down, this is a very orangey brown color. It's very light. It's sort of comparable to Vomit Brown in the GW Citadel range. Lovely name. Vomit Brown. And I'm just using an old Basecoat brush right now. This is not a brush that's in particularly great condition, and I'm not too concerned at the moment because this is the first color I'm applying to the model. I'm starting with the skin, which is a large area. I'm not really worried if I get this color onto other places because I will be going back and hitting those areas up with different colors later anyway. And as you can tell, my paint is quite thin right now, and as it's going on, it's definitely not covering evenly, and in some places you can see quite strongly the black undercoat beneath, which for right now is the initial coat. This is fine. Alright, so I finished my first coat here of the tan leather, and as you can tell, it does look very splotchy when I'm very thin. Pretty messy too. I got it all over different places, and that's okay. That's just what I was looking for to get the basis going. So I'm going to go back and do my next coat, and here we are after the second coat. And as you should be able to tell, the color is starting to look a little stronger. You can see less of the black undercoat showing through, but it's still not quite where it needs to be. So we're going to keep going with a third coat, and we'll check in after that's done. Alrighty, so here we are after having applied 3 coats of the tanned leather, and it's looking pretty good. I think I'm just gonna have to do one more just to finish off a few parts that still don't look quite solid as I would like them. Okay, so finished the 4th coat of the tanned leather on the skin, and it looks ready to go. It's a nice solid smooth coat all the way around. So for the wings, I'm going to be using Rotting Flesh from the Citadel range, and this color again is very light. It's going to go on in multiple thin coats. It's going to take a while to build up the color, but I really like the sort of washed out, slightly greenish color that it applies, and again it'll look good as a starting point for when I go back and add a couple different color washes over it. You also notice that I changed my brush from the old beat up Basecoat brush to sort of my brush of choice, the Army Painter Monster brush, and this is because now that I've done the skin, there's a chance that I'll be making more and more mistakes and actually messing up what I just did with all those different coats of tan leather, so I want to use a more precise brush and try and limit the mistakes I'm going to make. So here's how the wings look after applying 2 coats of the Rotting Flesh. Okay, so now that I've finished up the third coat of the rotting flesh on the wings here. Next thing I'm going to be doing is painting the fur. The model doesn't have too much fur, so it shouldn't be too much of a task, but to paint the fur I'm going to be using Camry Brown, which is one of the foundation paints. And what I should find with this is that it's actually only going to take one, maybe two coats to get a nice solid base coat color on here. The foundation paints are really nice to work with. It's just they are somewhat limited in the range of colors that you get. So again, I'm going with my Wargamer Monster brush from the Army Painter range. So I'm trying to be a little bit more precise with where I'm applying the paint right now, since I've got two of my other base coats down already. Now that I've finished up base coating the fur with the Camry Brown, the next step I'm going to move to is working on the bone, horns, nails, that sort of thing. And for this color, I'm going to be using Deneb Stone, another one of the Citadel foundation paints. And I've really found this to be the best color to work with for bone. Use it on my vampire counts, on skeletons, graveguard, that sort of thing. And so, again, using my monster brush, and go on and paint this on. There's a bunch of different parts of the model, like up here in his fur, he's got a skull sticking out, because why wouldn't he? Right? He's just that kind of guy. And then, of course, his horns, his nails, and there's a few more skulls, I think, hanging about here and there. Now it's time to get started on some of the metal sections. So the majority of the metal I'm going to be painting using Citadel bolt gun metal as the base coat color here, and then other specific parts I'll be using tin bits to get a slightly different effect. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. One other thing I did, in addition to putting the bone color down on, the horns, teeth, actual bones that are on it, skulls and whatnot, and the nails, is that I touched up this area right here of the skin. I didn't paint that originally when I had put the skin color down. I guess I thought it was part of the horns, but in retrospect, after I took a look at the pictures on the box, I realized that that was in fact part of the skin. So I hit that up, and so now I'm gonna be painting the metal on, and I will check back in after I have finished this up. So as I said, next up after the bolt gun metal is going to be the tin bits, and I'm actually going to be changing some of the places where I painted on the bolt gun metal. For example, his nose ring, and change that to tin bits. Then he's got this sort of plate where his belt comes together, and again I'm going to use the tin bits on the plate on his shield as well. The idea is I wanted the bolt gun metal to be the predominant, silver to be the predominant color for the metal, but to switch it up in a few different places to add some interest and variety to the model. So let's start painting this on. With the metal out of the way, I'm going to be moving on to the belt, the bits of cloth, and the straps and whatnot. And for that, I'm going to be using Calfan Brown. So I'm getting pretty close to finishing up these base coats. I have been making quite a few mistakes along the way, and once I'm done painting on all the different base coat colors, I'll be going back and touching those up. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning up the mistakes that I made on the base coats. There's two parts that I'm going to leave black, so I'm actually going to have to touch up a bit. One is the wood on the handle of the axe and then on the shield, and the other is it's part of the wings, which I'm not sure what you call that, but those are going to end up being a really dark gray color at the end, so I'm going to leave them black for now, and then I will be highlighting with some gray afterwards. So I'm going to fix any of the mistakes I made, particularly around the face and some of the arms, the wraps and whatnot, and then touching up the black. And I'll take some photographs of it when I'm done, and we will have finished the base coats. Now that I'm all done, you can take a look here. I took a couple pictures of the finished product for now, with all the base coats fully completed and painted on. Keep an eye out for our next video, which is going to show how I finished off the model with the washes and highlights, etc. Thanks for watching.